case closed at the Boston Globe, or maybe not? Outside investigators have determined editor Brian McGrory did not violate any anti-harassment policies in text messages that came to light earlier this year. But now the woman who filed the complaint says that investigation was a sham.
It all began back in May when former Boston.com editor Hillary Sargent released a text where she says Globe editor Brian McGrory asked her, "What do you generally wear when you write?" The Globe initially took Sargent to court, trying to force her to come up with more detail. After they dropped the suit, Sargent sat down with outside investigators for a 5-hour interview. Now, according to a letter sent to staff yesterday, investigators ultimately determined the exchanges between Sargent and McGrory were initiated by and reciprocated by both parties and did not violate the Globe's anti-harassment policy. McGrory has repeatedly denied harassing Sargent, but did reveal the two dated several years ago. He said last night he's relieved the review is concluded and does not have further comment, nor does the Globe. But Sargent, who said in the past this is not her only complaint against the paper, had plenty further comment, posting a string of responses on Twitter, including this one. If the Globe wants to stage an investigation in order to build a convenient narrative to save its editor, go for it. I can't stop you. But don't pretend for a second that it's the right thing to do. You know better.
And in a statement released this afternoon, Hillary Sargent said she was incredibly disappointed by the decision and said that the paper has signaled to their own current and former employees that speaking out means swift retaliation. Sargent's attorney wrote in a separate statement that the Globe's investigation was not independent, pointing out it's the same law firm that brought suit against my client. Well, there's just a number of unknowns here that we're never going to know unless Hillary Sargent, once again, it's sort of, the ball's in her court. If she wants to release the data that she evidently must have shared with the Boston Globe, which I think included other information, other text exchanges, other conversations, but if she chooses not to do that, we won't know. I have to say, though, I feel as though this idea that it was an independent investigation is lame. I agree with Jack Siegel, Hillary Sargent's attorney, that it needed to be somebody completely independent. That's the firm that brought her to court. It's the same firm that they use for all Globe matters. So it's not, they represent the Globe. The Globe is their client, so it's not really independent.
I would love to know more details. I would love to know what it is that Hillary Sargent thinks the Globe failed to take seriously. In another one of her tweets, she said something like, I'd love to see the written policy that justifies what he did. The problem is that all along, as she's talked about bad behavior by Brian McGrory, she claims, and hinted at this bigger problem of a sexual harassment issue at the Globe, she's been really reluctant to provide concrete details. My sense all along has been that she wanted a reckoning to occur inside the Globe, and she wanted to be an agent of that reckoning. And I see no indication that her MO is going to change from this point on. Maybe I'm incorrect. That her disappointment that she finally was brought in, talked with, and then this was the outcome. Maybe she'll change and start to provide details that corroborate the hints she's been dropping all along. But I'm going to predict she doesn't. And then if she does not, I see the story going away, no matter what intimation she makes on Twitter in the future.
What an unbelievable mess this is. When the Globe finally agreed to sit down with Hillary Sargent and listen to what she had to say, it seems to me that the goal should have been to arrive at some sort of an understanding between all the parties, Brian McGrory, Hillary Sargent, and the Globe itself, that they could all agree to, and they all get on with their lives, quite frankly. And instead, what we've ended up with is this mess where the Globe has said that they have cleared Brian McGrory, and Hillary Sargent, if anything, seems angrier than she was beforehand. I don't know how hard they tried to reach this kind of an understanding, but
I don't think that was going to happen.
The fact that they didn't has just almost left them in a worse position than they were before.
For me, my original interest, of course, I'm interested in her case, but it's a little murkier because of this personal relationship that was revealed in the investigation, and upon which really they're making most of their decision in this case. But she always, from the beginning, has said what happened to her was bigger. There were many other people impacted. More stuff was happening, and that was not addressed. So
we don't know. Maybe it was.
Well, no, they said they didn't talk to anybody else. So how do you address it if you didn't talk to anybody else? You would have to talk to somebody else, either directly about her situation or more. So for me, the issue was, is there more? What's happening there? To everybody's point, it's kind of messy and unclear.
It's so difficult. I'm a couple years older than Hillary Sargent is, but I remember being in a newsroom as a young person in the late 1990s, around the time when she arrived at the Globe, and it was entirely common that the college student interns, female ones, were, they had to deal with a lot of the older men in the newsroom, pursuing them in some way. It was part of the newsroom culture at that time in an awful way that, it's not, to me, reminds me of the fact that was the era when we had President Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. And I think one thing that we have learned as a culture since then is that sexual harassment isn't only about actions, it's also about power relationships. And even though the relationship between Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky was consensual by all knowledge, nonetheless, the fact that the power disparity was so great put it in a different light. And I think the fact that there was a 15 or so year age gap and Hillary was a young college student when this started, and the fact that the power relationship has been unclear in a number of ways, whether or not Brian McGrory oversaw her at Boston.com or not.
Right. She
played a
claims
role
he
in her
hired
hiring.
Right, and I think that the broader context of what this means for the Globe is that the Globe needs to understand that sort of culture that was tolerated 20 years ago simply isn't tolerated anymore.
And that's not another thing that's not clear, whether there was any kind of discipline or reprimand on Brian McGrory. We'll never know whether, well, maybe we will, but we certainly don't know.